to That Was the News That Was. Dateline, 15 December. One day I will record that introduction, but well, I'm not sure. So many things happen. I'm quite busy, usually every day, and I will admit to you, age is catching up with me. I find myself wanting to sleep a lot more. But I'll be 69 on the 1st of January. Yeah, 69. God, what a good number. What an incredible life to live to. Compared to some people I've known over the years, my age and younger who've passed away. And I just keep on going. But, I don't know. It's difficult this week. I have 3 stories as usual to share with you. Although one of them I will expand on about things I know. And what's the word? Is it truth? Is it the fact? No, the facts. Let's say the facts. That's a nice word. Facts. And I love to present you the facts. As you know, when I started this podcast off, on my logo it says, "Hear the truth." I'm very particular about the truth. Because we all have truth. On a little side note, just before recording this, I noticed, and I put this on LinkedIn because I was quite perturbed by it. GB News, that well-known purveyor of the truth, or rather their truth, because everybody presents their own truth. That is the fact. I try to present the truth. But I do colour it sometimes in this programme, I do colour it my own thoughts. And what it was, they had a guy, I presume he came from Poland, they talking about Krakow. And he said that the crime in Krakow is nothing compared to England, London. And that sounds quite good. And then he says about how they don't let any migrants in, and the borders between them and Belarus are really, really stringent. Very impressive. And I did some research. I saw that London's is about 54% crime. Krakow is 29%. Isn't that impressive? Yes, it is. But then I started thinking, hold on a minute. Percentages, okay, I'm good with figures, but percentages are not really real things. You can measure your suspense. So I saw population of Krakow was about 714,000, call it 750,000. I can't remember the exact figure. I know what the population of London is. 9.6 million. Now there are several factors you have to take into think. I think you might agree with me. Is policing a city the size of London is a big task compared to there. So I think, and my theory is, if we brought Krakow's numbers up, well, they wouldn't be far short of us, really. So, it's incredible how people present facts to people. Now, the 3 stories I'm going to talk about. Number 1 is the COVID inquiry on Monday, when our Prime Minister appeared. Then on Tuesday, we had the Rwanda vote, and I was shocked at what happened. And finally, it's the safety of rough sleepers. I am an ex-rough sleeper. So let's start with the COVID inquiry. Now, when Mr. Johnson, in his testimony, said I didn't understand it and if you remember him giving these COVID briefings, there were so many gaps in facts that he presented to people that people knew it was like, does the guy have no comprehension? This is a guy who wrote a biography of Churchill and other people. But it's different when you write. As a writer, I understand, you have the facts you can look up as you're going. You make notes. But when you're talking, like he was, Churchill, Boris Johnson knew nothing. He was not Winston Churchill. And Mr. Sunak said, Mr. Sunak was, of course, asked about WhatsApp messages. And he said, well, I've changed my phone over the years and they don't seem to come over. And I thought about that. And I know I use WhatsApp for several different reasons. I message some of you. I'm on a couple of groups that talk about these things. I did a search because I know that when I've changed my phone, which I did earlier this year, my messages came over. Didn't answer it. But when you log into WhatsApp, actually, I discovered this afterwards. And probably I missed it. I say, do you want to keep records or not? Yes or no? I think most people don't realise it, and they've still got messages. So for him to say, Johnson, I understand. To me, he's not a technophobe. There is very little basic intelligence in the man. But Sunak, I thought, would have a grip on this thing. After all, he's even speaking to that arch foe of democracy. Well, I think anyway, Elon Trust. The guy who now does X, formerly known as Twitter. Could be like, think about it. This is Elon Trust. Yes, the man who owns a company that was known as Twitter, but no longer. So he kept on saying, oh, no, I didn't know why it doesn't. He even said if there were important issues in the meeting, one of my civil servants would have made notes about it. They never asked him the big question, which I was surprised about, because as I said last week, my friend saw that Sunak had said, why are we bothering, they're going to die anyway. Never asked him that question. He had one day of questioning while Boris had two. I wonder how many the others had. I never really noticed. And now if we look at this, we've got Johnson, Sunak and Hancock all singing from the same hymn book, so to speak. But the others weren't. Very worrying. Unfortunately, now the inquiry is shut down for Christmas. So I don't know when they come back and if they're calling any more people. Personally, I would have called back that civil servant who said, I believe it was the Prime Minister. You remember? That was one of the first thing I spoke about. And I said it might have been, there were two Prime Ministers present. And I will admit to you now, I did it out of fairness. I thought it was Johnson, but it seems it's Sunak who said it. Now this is a heavy week for Sunak, because on the Tuesday was the Rwanda Bill, in which the cover have now stated, as you may remember, several courts have said Rwanda is not a safe space to travel to. What could the government do? And what they did was they stated in the bill that Rwanda is safe to travel to. That would be like me saying, it's okay, don't worry if I shoot you, the bullets won't harm you. It's the most ridiculous thing. I couldn't see it passing, but it did. But there were 29 Tory MPs who abstained, and one of them was Suella Braverman. If you may remember, she had a dream. Her dream is to send the Rwandans to the migrants to Rwanda. What a beautiful dream. I don't think she's Martin Luther King. It surprised me. Labour tried to put an amendment that was rejected, and it passed by about 100 votes, funny enough, because the Tories had the majority. So there must be a lot of twisting arms, because a few people said they weren't going to. Now it must go to the House of Lords, and let's see what happens there. I can hope it fails. There's a side issue that came out of this story. That the following day, on the papers, one of the migrants who was held on one of those boats, had committed suicide. Now, why should he have committed suicide? We can't say why. Maybe it's because he heard about the vote and didn't want to go back. He thought he'd be going back to his home country. Can't say he didn't want to go to Rwanda. Sunny place, nice place. And remember, the government said it's safe to travel to. I still can't believe this. Safe to travel to. Even though everybody's saying it's not. Because they're determined to send them, but when will it happen? It might not happen until after the next election. And what will happen? If Labour get in, will they suddenly bounce the idea? I don't know, honestly. Interesting point. I might even write to the Labour Party and ask. That's another thing about facts. I'll tell you what happened this week. This is nothing to do with news. Let's make it casual. I'm on a panel that talks to the government about ending street homelessness. There was, I don't know, £2 billion put aside. And then a report came out called the Kerslake Report. And I don't know about you, when I see a report, I don't read it all. I want to look at the conclusion, who did it? Like looking at a mystery novel, last page, the murder is announced. And at the end they said this will not happen. I was thinking about it a couple of weeks ago, and I have to deal with press officers, which aren't very. I think the year 2016 I started dealing with press officers, so we're talking about for almost 8 years. And usually I get replies to every question I put questions in. I get a deadline. I've only had 2 completely blanks. One was I asked the press office why, when the rise in benefits, which on the website says the 6th of April, people were getting it various different dates. It didn't make sense to me. No reply. Another one, I put a few questions recently about the ending street homeless. And this one. So, there is something called the Freedom of Information Act. If something's published, you can request it. It does take 20 days for a reply. And at first I thought I'd do that. But all of a sudden I saw this number. I thought it might be interesting to speak to the people. I suppose this nice fella, very nice fella I think he was. He was very, nothing like quitting. He was polite. He says, if you send an email, it takes 20 days. Well, I never put a deadline that I need the information for. It's my mistake. But he did say if you don't receive a reply, you can come through to them. There must be the old thing of who watches the watchers. Unfortunately, with the politicians, that's not the case. Very little comeback against the politicians. I remember years ago, I was actually on job seekers allowance. I was doing a lot of volunteering, which I can't be bothered sitting home and watching television. I want to do things. I was having a little bit of trouble with one person at the job centre. So I thought, who can help me? So I thought, let's try my MP. you'd be shocked. I got a reply from the MP. It said, I don't deal with policies. Didn't make sense to me. And I think that's what you'll find if you apply your own. If it's something that might be means they've got to get out of their chair, they're not going to help you. Not even a referral to who might be able to help me. Which shows how important he felt I as a voter was. Actually, I moved in after he became the MP for the area. Now the final thing, the safety of rough sleepers. I've got quite a bit to say about this. In the paper, it was reported a guy filmed the security guard at McDonald's in Victoria Street. You might not know that, it's in London, I know it. And rough sleepers used to sleep around there or even beg around that area. And what was, security guard went out, tried to move his sleeping bag, next minute soaked the sleeping bag. Now, I don't know if you've ever slept in a sleeping bag. A wet sleeping bag is useless. Especially, I know we're now nice and warm homes. We can't. It was filmed by a member of the public. Now, if it hadn't been filmed by a member of the public, we would not have heard about it and nothing would have been said by McDonald's. Because McDonald's then stated they'd he sacked the staff. And this sort of thing is disgusting. But that's what we call public relations. And I do know that when I was on the street, now, I didn't sleep anywhere near there, but I know the McDonald's in the Strand, a homeless person could not walk into. If you walked into it, the security guard would actually escort you. Let's say, I'll use the word escort you out. So if you went and get a cup of coffee, which sometimes you want at night, that one, and it must be, I assume, this one, because near both of them are two big day centres. Near the one in Victoria Street is the Passage, and the one in the Strand is connections to St Martin's. And a lot of people slept near there because they weren't getting in the morning. I slept off Fleet Street, if you don't know London, which is the end of the Strand, another road, and a side road. And the funny thing is, near there was a McDonald's in Fleet Street. I'd go and buy myself a cup of coffee in the morning, go upstairs, and there was a little place where I could charge my phone during, be there for an hour or so. Not a word said. Even the one in Leicester Square I've been into, nothing said. But the Strand one, and now it's obvious the one in Victoria, same thing. And as I said before, if McDonald's had to say something because they had to be seen as nice people. It's funny. It reminded me of it. Now I will admit, I'm an idiot. Yes, I'm an idiot. Because I like to sleep, a place by myself, nobody around. You could see where I was sleeping, but I didn't be near people. Other people I knew, there was a group of guys I knew who slept in Covent Garden, underneath near the church, and they would tell me about the trouble they had from members of the public who were drunk. Years I slept there. I had only a couple of things. I had a drunk while I was sleeping kicked my feet. And I woke up and called her a few names. She was just laughing, looking at me laughing. I had trouble with the police. I'll speak about that in New Year. One, probably. And the only other time I had, where I was sleeping on his doorstep was a big light. One night, that light was gone, And I'm trying to get to sleep, and all of a sudden I heard this step on the floor, and I looked up, bloke got on there to have a piss. And I said, "Oi, what are you doing?" He was so embarrassed. He emptied his pockets and gave me a smash. It was about £5, I think it was. Nice for him, I didn't ask. But there's other things that happen on the street. Now, every Saturday in Leicester Square, with the French church was there, and you used to go there in the afternoon and have a sandwich and a cup of coffee. Very important food was in those days, you know. I don't know if it's better now or worse. But I was sitting there, talking to a couple of other guys, and this guy walked in, and I thought, where's his mate? Because him and this guy were together they were joined by the hip. I said, "What's happened to John?" Oh, he said, "Some bloke came by, took a 4x2 and smashed him up. He's in hospital." That is terrible. I think I mentioned this thing and people say why they do it. Usually, like the woman who kicked my feet, they're drunk. And they feel better by picking on somebody whose life isn't exactly happy. I wouldn't say I had the greatest life experiences on the street. I learned a lot. I shouldn't have slept by myself, yeah. But that's me. I think maybe because I was brought up in the East End, in Whitechapel, where there were quite a few nasty people. I never got into a fight with any of them because I'd be dead if I had. But you risk it, don't you, in life? Well, that's me anyway. I still don't believe in fighting. I'd rather talk my way. The only other time I had trouble, I remember, or almost could have turned into trouble, queuing up for this meal. There was this Indian who came out every Thursday, and he gave this sort of I love rice. Not as much as the Philippines, but I love rice. He did this sort of rice dish. And you sat there, he gave you cartons, you know. One of those little cartons. And it was rice, you got a spoon, it was beautiful. One of the few things I looked forward to at that time. And I was queuing up. There's loads behind me. I was one of the first there. And this bloke started moving. I said, "Hold on, mate. There's a queue here." He said, "I've just come out of jail. You want trouble, just have it." Well, I'm not a fighter. I said, you know, "I'm an old man." I was an old man then. Ancient now. I said nothing. But when the guy got the van, everybody else pushed him to the bank. Yeah. There are people who think they know it. And unfortunately, it's not safe being on the street. I met this bloke after the winter. Now, the winter shelters usually open about November, even before then, some of them. They close about March. Now, I remember I never went to a night shelter. I can't say I never went. Connections had a night shelter. I went along. And the first night, they give you cots to sleep on. And all these blokes walking around talking. I want to sleep. But no, they're talking. So I thought, maybe that's just for me getting used to it. You know, you've got to get used to a place. Friday night, same thing, I walked out. I couldn't get to sleep. Actually, years later, I've been homeless 3 times. Well, it could have been 4, but I'll talk about that at New Year's. But the 3rd time, the worker said to me, "I'll help you, but you've got to use our night show." And I said, "No, I knew what he was saying was wrong anyway, but I'm quite stubborn about things. Because why should I go in a place where I can't sleep? I was lucky, actually, for myself. Where I slept was quiet. I could get a good night's sleep. While a lot of the other guys would they might not get sleep till midnight. They'd be up at 5. They had to move. One bloke actually, I remember, near Knightsbridge, he climbed over this building site thing and slept there till they came, and they would come in the early morning. But he got a few hours peace. That's for safety. No. It's not safe on the street. I feel sorry for some of the young people who have experienced it. That's a fact. I don't know how many others of you there who have slept on the street, like myself. And one thing I'd like to do, and I plan to do it the first episode of this podcast, is who are the homeless? Because I don't know about you, some of you work in the area, some of you have experienced it. Is when I got off the street and people talked about homelessness, all I could think about is rough sleepers. Totally wrong. As you hear, Shannon, when she came on, she spoke about this. We don't think about these other areas. And I want to talk about them. I like to explore these things with people. So that's the facts. You always get facts from me, and sometimes stories. I'm a storyteller. Always have been. Now Monday, you'll have Shannon, actually. Well, so it's passed. Shannon Johnson of HBP Consultancy. You remember Mike came along and spoke about things? Well, she's going to speak about temporary housing, which is a scourge nowadays. A lot of people are trapped in temporary housing. And then we're coming up to Christmas. I'm just recording an interview with a lady called Nicola Tennant, and we were going to talk about why she does what she does, but we got into a subject of peer mentoring. And I'm trained as a peer mentor. I've got loads of training here. Can't drive, but I can do everything else. And that was an amazing comedy. I love it. The conversations go key swiftly with Anthony Haddock. You might remember. Excuse me. It was amazing because he never told me the half an hour before we did that conversation that he'd been homeless at 11. These are things we need to know about. Then we got that, then come at the Christmas, innit? That'd be Nicola's one on Christmas Day. And the following week I'll be sharing my story. But also I want to share something with you that I'm doing at the moment. I'm going to create a newsletter for the podcast, which will be issued on the 22nd December. I've now formatted the look of it. Just got to fill the bits in. Maybe you'd like to make a comment on what you think of the podcast. Let me know. I've also created an email just for the podcast. I won't start using it to the 22nd of that. So you still contact me on my personal email of Ian Kalman, IAN, India Alpha November, Kilo Alpha Lima, Mike Alpha November at gmx.com. So thank you very much and have a nice weekend.